At 99 years old, Mel Brooks remains one of the last living legends of Hollywood's golden comedy era. A man who built his legacy on laughter, satire, and the kind of fearless humor that few dared to attempt. Brooks has always been admired for his ability to turn even the darkest moments into comedy. From Blazing Saddles to Young Frankenstein and The Producers, his films have stood the test of time, shaping generations of comedians and redefining what comedy could be. But as sharp and witty as he has always been on screen, Mel Brooks has never been one to sugarcoat his feelings off screen either. Known for his blunt honesty, he's spent decades in Hollywood navigating the egos, rivalries, and backstage feuds that the public rarely gets to see. And now, nearing 100, Brooks has finally let slip something that shocked even his most loyal fans. In a candid reflection, he revealed the names of 5 actors he simply could not stand working with. People who, despite their talent, rubbed him the wrong way, clashed with his vision, or left scars on his otherwise glittering career. For a man who has made the world laugh for nearly a century, this revelation is both unexpected and fascinating. Who were these actors? What happened behind the scenes to create such lasting animosity? And why did Mel Brooks decide to reveal this truth now, at the twilight of his life? This is the untold story of Hollywood's funniest man and the 5 actors he hated the most. For most of his career, Mel Brooks built a reputation for creating an atmosphere of fun and chaos on his sets. He believed comedy should feel free, unrestrained, and alive with improvisation. But not every actor was able or willing to work that way. The first actor Brooks named as one of the 5 he hated the most was someone who simply couldn't loosen up, a performer who thrived on structure, order, and control. The clash between Brooks' wild comedic style and this actor's rigid approach was inevitable. And when it happened, it left both men scarred. Brooks recalled how, during the early stages of filming, the tension became obvious. He wanted actors to take risks, to break character if something funny happened, and to embrace the unpredictability of comedy. But this particular star resisted every attempt. Instead of laughing along or playing into the absurdity, the actor grew frustrated, treating Brooks' methods as unprofessional. Their arguments often spilled into the open, with crew members nervously watching the battle of wills unfold. What made the situation even more difficult was that this actor was, by all accounts, supremely talented. His performances were powerful, his screen presence undeniable, but his unwillingness to embrace Brooks's free-spirited direction created a toxic working environment. Scenes that should have been light-hearted turned into grueling struggles, and the entire set began to feel the strain. Brooks later admitted that he dreaded showing up for work on days when he knew he had to shoot with him. The feud didn't stay behind the camera. Insiders at the time whispered about the growing animosity, though few details emerged publicly. Brooks, being a consummate professional, tried to keep the production on track, but his patience wore thin. He later confessed that he often considered replacing the actor altogether, but contractual obligations and studio pressures made it impossible. Instead, he pushed forward, determined to finish the project, even if it meant biting his tongue. Decades later, reflecting on the experience, Brooks was remarkably candid. He described the actor as someone who sucked the air out of every room and made comedy feel like a chore rather than a joy. Coming from a man who thrived on spontaneity, that statement spoke volumes. For Brooks, comedy was supposed to be liberating, but working with this actor turned it into a battlefield. And yet, even amid the chaos, Brooks found something valuable in the experience. He later joked that the tension actually sharpened his comedic instincts, forcing him to fight harder for the humor he believed in. It also taught him an important lesson about casting. Never choose an actor solely for their reputation or box office appeal. Instead, choose someone who shares the same vision and energy. He admitted that after this debacle, he became much more careful about who he allowed into his creative circle. The revelation shocked fans, not because Brooks had an enemy, but because he rarely spoke about his personal grudges. For decades, he avoided naming names, preferring to let the work speak for itself. But at 99, he decided it was time to be honest. This first actor, he admitted, was someone he respected for their talent, but could never bring himself to like. The dislike was mutual, and when filming wrapped, they parted ways. never collaborating again. The story of this feud is a reminder that even in the world of comedy, where laughter is the currency, personalities can clash in ways that leave deep marks. For Brooks, it was a test of patience and perseverance. For the actor, it was likely a frustration at being pushed out of their comfort zone. But for audiences, it's a fascinating glimpse behind the curtain, proof that the funniest films often have the most dramatic stories hidden within them. This was only the first of the 5 actors Brooks named. And as revealing as it was, the next name on his list would prove even more shocking, because it involved someone fans always assumed was his friend. If the first actor Mel Brooks disliked was a matter of clashing work styles, the second name on his list cut much deeper, because this was someone Brooks once considered a friend. Their history was built not only on shared work in Hollywood, but also on the kind of camaraderie that often comes from years spent in the same circles. But as Brooks revealed at 99, this relationship soured quickly, leaving behind bitterness that lasted for decades. The actor in question had a reputation for being charming in public, but ruthless behind the scenes. At first, Brooks admired him, believing they shared the same vision for comedy and storytelling. They would attend dinners, laugh over ideas, and even talk about collaborating on future projects. Brooks genuinely thought he had found a kindred spirit, someone who valued humor as much as he did. But once they actually worked together, the illusion was shattered. Brooks described the experience as a masterclass in betrayal. The actor, rather than supporting his direction, began undermining him at every turn. Suggestions that should have been private were leaked to others, criticisms were delivered with venom, and subtle digs made it clear he wasn't on Brooks's side. What stung most was the duplicity. In public, the actor praised Brooks as a genius, but in private, he tried to bend the production to his own will. Crew members began to notice the tension. Some whispered that the actor seemed jealous of Brooks's influence, resenting the fact that Mel's name carried more weight than his own. Others believed it was simply ego, the eternal Hollywood struggle for control. Whatever the cause, Brooks knew he couldn't trust him.
What should have been a partnership turned into a silent war, with every creative decision becoming a point of conflict. For Brooks, who had always valued loyalty, this betrayal was devastating.
He later admitted that it forced him to change the way he approached friendships in the industry. "Hollywood friendships are like shadows," he once said. "They're with you in the light, but the moment things get dark, they vanish." The statement, though witty, carried the pain of someone who had seen the darker side of fame up close. What made matters worse was that the actor's behavior didn't stop once the cameras stopped rolling. After the project wrapped, he gave interviews where he subtly criticized Brooks, questioning his methods and implying that the success of the film had more to do with his own efforts than Mel's direction. To fans, the comments seemed harmless, but to Brooks, they were daggers, an attempt to rewrite history at his expense. Years passed, and while many assumed the feud had cooled, Brooks carried the sting with him. At 99, he admitted that he never forgave this actor. He could forgive mistakes, he said, but not intentional cruelty. The hurt came not from creative disagreements, those he expected, but from the realization that someone he thought was a friend had only been using him for their own gain. The revelation shocked fans because it went against the public perception of Brooks as a man who could get along with anyone, but it also humanized him. Even someone as beloved as Mel Brooks wasn't immune to betrayal, and his honesty about it proved that Hollywood legends face the same heartbreaks as everyone else. Reflecting on the experience, Brooks said that he took an important lesson from it. Never mistake charm for character. The line, delivered with his trademark wit, captured the essence of the feud. It was a warning to younger artists who might find themselves dazzled by Hollywood personalities. For Brooks, the betrayal was permanent, and even in his twilight years, the bitterness remained. This second name on his list wasn't just an actor he disliked. It was a reminder of how fragile trust can be in an industry built on illusion. And if fans thought this was shocking, the next name he revealed was even more surprising. An actor whose feud with Brooks nearly derailed one of his most famous films, Mel Brooks. Third name shocked fans even more because it wasn't just a personal dislike. It was tied to a film that has become a comedy classic. This actor, despite their talent, clashed with Brooks on nearly every level during production, creating tension that threatened to derail the project entirely. For a director who thrived on improvisation and spontaneity, this was nothing short of a nightmare. According to Brooks, the problems began during rehearsals. The actor struggled to understand Brooks's unique comedic style, which relies heavily on timing, absurdity, and a willingness to push boundaries. Where Brooks saw opportunity, the actor saw chaos. Scenes that Brooks wanted to be lively, ridiculous, and unpredictable were approached with rigidity and caution, stifling the creative energy that Brooks considered essential to the film's success. The tension quickly escalated. Brooks recounted long hours of frustration, where he would try to coax genuine reactions from the actor, only to be met with resistance. Crew members noticed the strain immediately. Production days that should have been filled with laughter became battles of patience and endurance. Brooks admitted that at times he considered rewriting scenes or even recasting, but the actor's name carried so much weight that the studio resisted any change. What made the situation particularly difficult was the actor's ego. While Brooks has always been outspoken and opinionated, he expects collaboration, not defiance. This actor, however, treated every suggestion from Brooks as an affront. Arguments erupted on set, sometimes turning heated. And Brooks would later joke that filming felt more like negotiating peace treaties than making a movie. The contrast between Brooks's free-flowing comedic energy and the actor's controlling nature made every day a delicate dance. Despite the chaos, Brooks pushed forward, determined not to compromise his vision. He recalled that many of the funniest moments on screen came from trying to work around the actor's rigidity, finding loopholes in scenes, or encouraging supporting actors to improvise. In a way, Brooks later admitted, the challenge made the movie even better. It forced him to think creatively, to adapt, and to turn obstacles into comedy gold. Off camera, the tension persisted. Reports circulated that the actor was dismissive of Brooks' leadership, undermining him in front of the crew and other cast members. While Brooks was known for his humor and charm, he did not tolerate disrespect. He described some of the backstage moments as draining, and admitted that by the end of filming, he had developed a genuine distaste for the actor. It wasn't personal in the traditional sense. It was a clash of principles, styles, and dedication to craft. Reflecting decades later, Brooks was candid. He admitted that while the actor's performance may have been impressive on film, working with them had been exhausting, frustrating, and at times infuriating. For someone who loves collaboration and spontaneity, this experience was a stark reminder that talent alone doesn't guarantee harmony on a set. Personality, flexibility, and respect for the creative vision are equally important. Fans were surprised to learn which film was nearly derailed, and the actor responsible, as both names are now legendary in Hollywood. Brooks' revelation humanized the process of filmmaking, showing that even iconic movies are shaped by behind-the-scenes conflicts, personalities, and clashes of vision. By naming this actor as one he hated, Brooks illustrated a truth about his career. While he has worked with many stars he admires, there have been moments where collaboration failed, egos collided, and humor was nearly lost. And in his candid reflections at 99, he made it clear that some battles, no matter how challenging, remain unforgettable, and some actors, no matter how famous, simply left a bitter mark. The story of this third actor sets the stage for what Brooks described as the most astonishing feud of all, a clash that fans would never have expected. Involving one of Hollywood's most celebrated stars, Mel Brooks' fourth actor was, according to him, the most surprising name on the list. This was someone the public assumed he admired, a star whose career seemed aligned with Brooks's comedic sensibilities. But behind the cameras, their working relationship was anything but harmonious. The feud was so intense that it nearly overshadowed the projects they worked on together, leaving lasting tension that Brooks has carried into his late 90s. Brooks explained that the problem began with clashing personalities. While he thrived on improvisation, unpredictability, and pushing boundaries, this actor was highly structured, exacting, and unwilling to stray from the script. For Brooks, who views comedy as a living, breathing art, this rigidity was suffocating. Scenes that should have been spontaneous and filled with laughter instead felt forced and constrained. Every joke had to be meticulously planned, leaving little room for the kind of on-set magic Brooks loved to capture. It wasn't just creative differences, there was ego involved. Brooks described the actor as constantly trying to steal the spotlight, someone who wanted to control not only their performance, but the performances of others around them. Reports from crew members and insiders corroborated Brooks's frustrations, describing long days on set filled with arguments, passive-aggressive comments, and a general sense of unease. Brooks later admitted that at times he felt completely drained after filming with this actor, noting that the experience tested his patience like never before. Despite the tension, Brooks tried to find common ground. He attempted to compromise, suggesting adjustments and alternative approaches that might make the collaboration smoother. But the actor resisted every effort, often interpreting Brooks' guidance as criticism. For someone who had spent decades mastering the art of comedy, this resistance felt both disrespectful and exhausting. It was a constant reminder that talent alone doesn't guarantee teamwork or chemistry. What made this feud particularly memorable was its impact on Brooks personally. He has always described himself as a lover of people and laughter, yet this relationship forced him to confront the darker side of fame: envy, stubbornness, and the fragility of trust. While he usually prefers to focus on the joy of making movies, he admitted that this actor left a bitter mark on his experience. Even decades later, the memory evokes frustration, illustrating that Hollywood's bright lights can cast long shadows behind the scenes. Interestingly, Brooks' reflection wasn't all bitterness. He admitted that the friction did produce some unintentional comedy, moments that, in hindsight, became legendary anecdotes for cast and crew alike. He joked about some of the absurd arguments and clashing ideas, acknowledging that while he hated the actor personally, their conflict did give rise to stories he could laugh about later. Yet, despite any humorous outcomes, Brooks' sentiment remained clear. Working with this person was one of the most stressful experiences of his career. For fans, the revelation was startling. They had long admired both Brooks and the actor, assuming a seamless professional relationship. But Brooks' honesty peeled back the glamour, revealing the human complexities of collaboration in Hollywood. It underscored a truth few want to admit. Even legendary talents can clash in ways that leave lasting tension. This fourth feud also set the stage for Brooks' final revelation, the fifth actor, who, according to Brooks, was not only difficult to work with but also someone whose presence left a permanent mark on his career and memory. The story of this last actor would prove to be both the most personal and the most revealing of all.